Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time! Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Throw game for the win! Taylor's gone. Come on, touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU, America. They got a football team now.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh, now, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this big college football week 4 game day weekend as we head into that. Hope everybody is doing well. Jim Coyle with you along for this Friday ride, and hopefully looking forward a jacked up full dais today. Todd, Leary, Jeffrey the Greek, Zach Osterman, Bill Bender, Alec, Lasley. Whoo! And, how about those fever last night? But lots to get to as week 4 looms ahead, looming large as Indiana, number 19 of the country, will host number 9, Illinois, in a top 10 showdown. Biggest game in college football this weekend, to be honest with you. But looking forward to this. Hope everything's going well for no matter where you are, whether it's in Santa Claus or South Bend, Evansville to Fort Wayne, on one of our great radio station affiliates like 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call in Evansville, and the voice of the region, 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM WJOB, and Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it locked where you got it all day. And we'll get you through it. Man, it is here. Game weekend of week 4 of the college football world. And we are, of course, in and around Bloomington. Huge game coming in. Indiana taking on the Illini tomorrow in a 7:30 national television matchup on NBC that you just can't wait for. How did your week go? I hope it was certainly a good one, and glad to have you along. The fever, you got a fever. I got a fever, and the only cure is more fever. How about the fever, man? Down 6 players, 3 starters, and they win their opening playoff series against the Dream. It must be a dream. But, man, those players that have filled in, they deserve some bonuses, man. I mean, that is crazy that they could do what they did and come back and make it. Not only make it, but to finish the deal. I mean, that's very impressive to me. I don't know if you could have seen that anywhere else in sports, because that was that's overcoming a lot, to be honest with you. But the thing that I noticed that stood out most of all was it looked like the Atlanta Dream. Atlanta is the sixth largest metropolitan area in the United States. Sixth biggest. And they played in a bandbox. They played in a gym that's smaller than the average high school gym in Indiana. 3,800 people. Man, that not exactly impressive if you want to know the truth about that. But so Indiana got what they deserved. The win. Just crazy. Now, can they move on in the next level? That'll be we'll find out about that, obviously. But all you can do is hope and play the games. But the way they played, man, pretty impressive. I mean, that's I just you gotta be impressed. Gotta be impressed. Hey, make sure you get your college pick'ems in from ISB Radio, college pick'ems. As don't be like me and leave a week out. That does not work well in your score. If you keep a score for those of you at home, yeah, it cost me, and that's a week I will not be able to make up. It's too many points. And we'll pull up the leaders on that as well. We have a single leader right now in that category. Looking at the jacket over there on the wall, the spoils that go to the winner for the end of the season. Long ways till the end. Long ways until we get to the end. But heck of a start. How's your weekend started? What are your plans? What are your tailgating plans? All day long tailgating at Memorial Stadium tomorrow. There you go. Signorace on the social media hotline. Smoke him if you got him, Hoosiers, he says. Man, why not? Might as well. I ran into some, I didn't run into really. I saw a group of Illinois fans last night. Young, look like all students that are in for the game. And I asked them for a prediction, and one said 31-0, and I immediately said IU's not going to win by 30. And they started laughing. But they seem confident in their boys, but you have to. Right? It's amazing. You have two sides here that equally think that their team is going to win. And I hope it is that kind of a game. Of course, I know Indiana fans would rather just see a blowout. And that would be better for Indiana. Not going to lie. Scott, looking at parking. Parking passes were going for $160 to $400 just for parking. Yeah. I believe it, baby. When it gets popular, that's how things go. The price goes up for everything. Big high school weekend. What week 5 on the high school scene? Big games all around as they've reached the halfway point of their season already. That's kind of crazy, right? But it is what it is. I talked about yesterday the busy October coming up for Indiana basketball. And it is that with several things going on in the month of October. We'll take our first break. Back with more, including the Shot Father, right after these messages from all of our favorite sponsors from Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with more
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Friday. Big time game day, week 4 of the college football season. And Todd Leary, the shot father, joins us now. How are you, sir?
I'm enjoying some sunshine. Great weather.
Awesome to see. We also have Jeffrey the Greek, which have you met before? It's been a while. If you have, I can't remember. I don't think you guys have been on before. Jeffrey's our resident guru. Haven't had him on for a while for the football season. Todd Leary as well. Jeffrey, are you ready for a big weekend of Big Ten football?
It's finally here after mostly scrimmages the first 3 weeks. This is our first real big on big crime, as we say on the Eyes on Big podcast. A couple rivalries mixed in there. So it's good to see. We're going to finally learn about a lot of teams here.
Good to see you. It's been quite a while, at least a year since we've seen you on, man. But just in time, as the college football season is about to get underway. Indiana, Illinois, probably the biggest game of the weekend, Todd. I know Florida is playing Miami, but we've already seen that show. But this is a huge game with huge implications, because the winner of this game, or more importantly, the loser of this game, they've got their CFP hopes kind of not sideline, but little chink in the armor, because it will become an uphill battle for either team.
Yeah, no doubt. It would definitely make it more difficult for the loser, but it doesn't rule them out. That's the awesome part about the new playoff system, and which I love, because it used to be, you lose a game and you're out. You got no chance, and now that's obviously not the case. So it's much better. That Florida Miami game should be a good one also, but you're right. I mean, the one that people keep talking about, I think the Big Ten, it's super top heavy, and for most of my lifetime has been. And I think now the 3, 4, 5, 6 place teams in that league are starting to gain some respect, and the Illinois and Indianas of the world are in that category. And so that's why this weekend, what Indiana did last year is it's like a movie script, and backing that up is a hard thing to do. And so far, I think he made a great point. They've been scrimmages. They've not even been great scrimmages. But this is the real deal, and this is they're going to be lined up against people that they're just as big and fast and strong as they are, and it's going to be schemes and who can make a big play, who doesn't turn the ball over, and that's going to be what comes out of this weekend for Indiana. And hopefully, being at home, you would think Indiana should have an advantage.
Yeah, Jeffrey, turnovers loomed large in the Illini's game with down at Duke that really kind of altered that game. But this is a game that you can't turn the ball over. And we've got two teams that have combined for 11 takeaways with one loss of that. Indiana lost one fumble out of 6, and the Illini have forced 6 takeaways, all in the positive side for them. So both sides taking care of the ball.
Yeah, in that Duke game with Illinois, a little bit of helter-skelter in the first half there. In the second half, Illinois' defense and O-line really settled down and took control of that game. What's interesting is leading into this game, there's so many uniquenesses about these two teams going against each other. Of course, overall, you have more of the basketball school that is now gotten good at football. That's overarching. Last year was a huge breakthrough year for both teams. Coming into this year, we essentially have 2 cupcakes that both teams have played, along with one darn good team. Like Old Dominion has wound up being a pretty good team for Indiana to start out with, and then the aforementioned Duke Blue Devils for Illinois. So we've gotten a semi-test for both teams, but now here is the real big test that happens. So for me, I feel like in these games, if you're looking at this from an Indiana point of view, Indiana just boat raced people last year that were somewhat, even to under Indiana. But I should say more under Indiana as far as team cohesion and talent. But the teams that were close to them, things tightened up, like the Indiana offensive line would tighten up. I'm thinking, Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame last year. I don't think Illinois is quite up to that level, but I do expect the total points in the game to go more towards the defenses in this game. We got 2 good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but I really do think this will be a little bit tighter, a little bit lower scoring than maybe some people are expecting.
And Todd, that has been kind of the prevailing theme from different people I've heard and read, things I've read. I find I can't decide if I'm going to follow that script or not. Illinois just lost an all Big Ten defensive back, so that will kind of loom large into this. And both teams are without a running back. Indiana losing Lee Beebe Jr. for the season, unfortunately, and I don't recall the Illini running back that's out. But so all things are pretty equal there, except for that lack in the secondary for the Illini. Not exactly what you would want going in against a team that is a prolific passing team.
Yeah, and go along with what Jeffrey said. I mean, I think both of these teams, if you just play it out, almost like you were writing a movie script, you would think they would both kind of try to feel each other out early. And that's why it'll probably start out a little slower. At least that's what we would think. Now they'll probably both come out and throw 80-yard touchdowns on the first play of the game. But generally, I mean, you would think their first tough test, both teams are going to be feeling out, what kind of schemes the defenses are coming with. Are they blitzing a lot? Are they sitting back playing zones? Like, it should probably start slow and hopefully in the second half, come out with a little more firepower. But Kurt Cignetti does kind of different stuff than what a lot of people might expect. And they may not come out slow. They may come out firing and try to jump on them early. And so I'm with you, Jim. I don't know which side I feel the most like it's going to go. I love scoring, so I'm hoping it goes where they're both just firing it down the field, but it's most likely probably going to go the way Jeffrey says.
Yeah, in watching Indiana against Indiana State, I know that they're playing a very overmatched opponent, Jeff, but as I watched Fernando Mendoza, he looked like it had just came together for him there because his passes were dimes, he was throwing ropes. 2 weeks in a row, he finds a receiver and connects with multiple touchdowns. Let's see, 7 touchdowns to just 2 receivers over 2 weeks, and Elijah Surratt with 3 and Omar Cooper Jr. with 4. And there's still EJ Williams out there. There's things that they haven't tapped into yet. So it looks like the IU offense is starting to round into form. I think that they might have the running games might be a wash. Illinois does a good job of running the football. I think Indiana's passing game is better. I think they have more weapons. I think their offensive line is a little bit better. I've heard so much about the Illini's offensive line having the most starts in the Big Ten and maybe college football, but it hasn't shown to be that much of a benefit on the field yet.
I see a lot of similarities across the board, but that's the one that I believe is in the best advantage for Indiana. If we're comparing unit to unit, obviously, Illinois' offensive line isn't going against Indiana's offensive line, but just comparing unit to unit, Illinois' offensive line has underwhelmed big time. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. When you said they run the ball well, I wouldn't say that. I don't think they run the ball well. And in fact, my podcast partner, Big Kurt, a huge Illini fan, he's been screaming pretty much since the second or third quarter of the first game to throw the ball to set up the run. I think you will see that out of Luke Altmaier and Brett Bielema. I think Brett Bielema, by the way, both coaches, sometimes there's just a distinct coaching advantage. I don't think we have that here. These are two coaches that absolutely know how to get their teams ready for a big game like this, which lends itself into thinking it will be an excellent game, which I think it will be. Anyways, I believe Brett Bielema will put the ball in Luke Altmaier's hands because that's the best player on the field for them offensively. This is a 800-year senior that's got 3 years in the system, same offensive coordinator and everything. He knows where the ball's going before the defense is even back in their position. So I expect this to start out with, Luke Altmaier. However, I don't expect bombs. I expect the ball to be out quick. So it's almost like an extension of the rushing attack with the style of throwing that I think we'll see from Illinois early. But that's their best attack, to try to move the ball early and then maybe work in the run. Whereas with Indiana, it's all on the board right from the get-go. Fernando Mendoza, I guess, looks rough in the first game. Again, first start, new system, new surroundings against a pretty good Old Dominion team. He has just steadily improved after that. He's getting glowing reviews right now from people that know more than me for quarterback, development and looking at the next level. So it's not that I don't expect points on the board. I just think it's like it's already been mentioned. I think there is going to be a feeling out process.
Yeah, we'll certainly see how it plays out. But I agree with what you said about Fernando Mendoza, and Todd, as a former basketball player. It's probably not quite exactly the same, but the improvement that happens between your first real game and say the third or fourth real game, how much of a difference is there? Did you notice? Was visible to you, to the team, just as far as how you can quickly improve by playing real games?
Yeah, it's always helpful to be able to see where you're at and to see your improvement, to go watch the game film. And I think I said this on your show last week. It becomes so monotonous, and it's just tough to play and practice against the same guys every day. And the guys know, when you're practicing, the defense knows based on your alignment. They kind of know what you're running, and guys play the play. I think I said that last week a bunch. There's just so many. It's so much more difficult to play against your own team, and when you go play against, the first string of another opponent, that's when you really kind of feel it out. And yeah, it was Indiana State last week, but look, those are Division I football players. Those are not like they're playing, a JV or an academy somewhere. So they have improved. This will be by far the toughest test. That's Mr. Obvious there. But I think this is a situation of Mendoza's confidence has to be, hopefully it's higher a month from now than it is now, but it has to be at its high point right now for him. After that first game, I think everyone was trying to sell the fact that Old Dominion was pretty good. And now I think most people believe it. And so that game feels different today than it did the day, that Sunday after that first game. And so I think that the amount of time that they've been able to having success on the field, even though it's lesser opponents, is very, very good for the whole offensive unit, especially at this point coming into a game like Illinois.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff.
Yeah, there's something going on with college football right now with so many of these lower level FCS teams and G5, G6, whatever teams. They get picked apart so ruthlessly that these coaches are starting from scratch almost every single, August. And you are seeing that. Like, look at some of these scores that you are seeing. I mean, the average score last week in the Big Ten for 10 games was 56-7. In 10 games, that was the average score. Like and then like I look at Minnesota, first 2 games of the year, they look like Saban era Alabama. Okay. They fly out to California. They play a team with a pulse and a quarterback that's hot. Suddenly things look different. We've seen examples of this all over the place. So that is what has been crazy to me. That's the story this year in not only the Big Ten, but across the country, is just how deep we're getting into the season. And we've learned very little about these teams. Really anything could happen. I honestly could see Indiana running away with this thing on Saturday evening. I really can. Would it surprise me a little bit more if Illinois went into Bloomington and ran away with it? Absolutely. But it's at least on the ledger. So maybe Illinois' rushing attack suddenly works. Like there's so many things that we don't know. But again, I would just go back to 2 great coaches. They've been there before. So you would expect a punch counter punch for most of Saturday night.
Yeah, Indiana reminds me of Indiana basketball of your era, Todd, because those teams you played on were prolific from the offensive side, but they were pretty damn good on the defensive side. And so I don't know if one side was actually better than the other, if which one complemented the other more. And for Indiana, that has been the case on the offensive side as far as running the ball and passing the ball. They've rushed for over 300 yards in their first 3 games. All the while, not lighting it up through the air, Fernando Mendoza, 95% last week, 19 of 20, like 270 for 5 touchdowns in the first half alone. Didn't set foot on the field in the second half. So they're definitely complementing each other. And then I think Indiana's defense has an advantage with the injury to the defensive back for Illinois. And I think Indiana was probably a little more solid with D'Angelo Pons in the secondary and Aiden Fisher and Mikael Kamara, 3 big-time known names. So I would have given the advantage to Indiana. Now you add in the fact that it's going to be a home crazy sellout environment on national TV under the lights. Ooh, it's going to be fun regardless, but I think Indiana definitely has the advantage. And Vegas agrees. They start out as a 4.5-point favorite. It's now 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to assume that's going to be the home field situation, and as it probably should be. I mean, I think we would, if you're looking at an SEC game and this is, Tennessee and Georgia, like you're expecting the home team to probably win, even though it doesn't always work out that way. But I mean, this Indiana football team has gotten very successful very quick. And one of Coach Knight's things that he used to always harp on was how a team handles success. And up to this point, Indiana has handled success pretty well. Now, when they got to the Michigan and the Ohio State and the Notre Dame games last year, I mean, they obviously were competitive, but they weren't imposing their will.
Good. It's pretty good teams.
Yeah, they're really good teams. I mean that, but but when you look at, like, those are the teams we want to beat. Like Indiana's mark this year is going to be based on the good teams that they beat. And when you go down and look at the schedule for the whole year, you start playing it out. You're like, okay, how many games are they going to win? You start, Penn State, that's going to be tough. And then you're like, well, wait a minute, those are ones you need to win. And you don't have to win them all, but you've got to win some of those games. And this could be a very successful season still not making the college football playoff, but it could also be a pretty unsuccessful season if they're not competitive in those big games. And those big games start tonight. Like, this is a top 10 team for a reason, and you're playing them at home, and you should beat them. Like, on paper, you should beat this team. And you're right, Jim. I think the offense for Indiana and the offense for Illinois, fairly similar. I think Indiana has the slightest edge defensively, but the home field advantage should be the deciding factor in this one. And, you know, the part of it that scares me is, and I was trying to think of it, you probably know the answer. You probably talked about it this week. When's the last time Indiana played a ranked opponent that wasn't named Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State at home in this kind of situation, in a night game on national TV? Like, I don't even have a clue. It might have been last year.
It's only the 5th time ever that I think Indiana is hosting a game in which both teams are ranked at Memorial Stadium.
And I threw out on Twitter, as long as this is a competitive game, whoever wins, either way, they should both remain ranked on Sunday. If these were two SEC schools exactly set up the same way, it wouldn't matter the outcome. They would both still be ranked on Sunday. That's what I think should apply to this game. And then I would also throw out there really fun conversation on the offseason while talking about the Hoosiers. I asked everybody. I asked Hoosier fans. I asked non-Hoosier fans, you know, what is the win level that Indiana has to get back to quote unquote keep the respect, you know, keep things going? The general answers were 8 or 9 wins, right? Even if Indiana loses this game, they can still obviously get to 8 or 9 wins on the season, even if they don't make the college football playoff. I don't think the only, you know, bar that you have to hit is to make the college football playoff in order for it to be a successful season, at least for us plebes, non-Ohio State people that cheer for our teams. So I still think there's a ton of ways for Indiana to have success. However, if Indiana wins this game, no matter what, everything's still on the table. However, let's say Indiana wins this game 31-13, where it is just obvious they're the better team on the TV screen on Saturday night. It's going to completely change the narrative for Indiana the rest of the year. Now suddenly they become a college football playoff probable team, you know, that 4th team in the Big Ten that's going to make the playoffs. So I mean, not to get people even more jacked up than what probably they already are for the game, but that's the stuff that's on the table.
Yeah, to go along with what Jeffrey's saying, like, you look last year at Alabama, like when Alabama kept losing games last year, I know I fell into the category of, I still just assumed they're still good. Like, they're still going to be really good. They're still going to be there in the playoffs. Like, they're Alabama. Of course they're still good. And Ohio State, you would feel the same way. Penn State, Georgia, like, you kind of get that same way. With Indiana and Illinois, you don't have that. And if they lose a game, if Illinois gets beat 31-13 in this game, people are going to write them off. Now, they could put themselves back into the conversation, but people are going to kind of write them off. Indiana gets blown out in this game, people will write them off, in my opinion.
My issue is that comfy landing still applies to South Carolina and Ole Miss and Texas A&M.
True.
What have these teams done anytime in the last 25 years to be able to get that built-in, you know, comfy landing? So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just, you know, taking it from a little bit different angle with it. And what I'm trying to say now, I wasn't trying to point out anything negatively against you earlier, but right, you know, people say, wow, Indiana got beat by Notre Dame and Ohio State. Indiana got beat by the 2 teams that wound up in the college football playoff national championship. So, like, if that's the only 2 teams you got beat by, and the other teams pretty much across the board, you blew them out. We've already established that Indiana was a good football team last year. This is not up for debate. This is ridiculous. I still think Indiana is the team for the most part, obviously tweaks this year. I just hope overall, I'm looking this, you know, Eyes on Big podcast. I look at all 18 teams. I really hope that people look at this as a quality football game against 2 quality football teams, because that is what we are getting on Saturday night. I'm very tired of everybody just looking at the helmets and thinking that it's not quite as a big of a deal. I hope this gets, you know, massive TV ratings on Saturday night. I think it will. It's going to be good football unless I'm proven wrong, but I believe we're going to have a great game.
Yeah, and I've called this a must-win for Indiana because of the very things that you're talking about. They still need to cement their affiliation as being someone to be reckoned with at that upper level. They didn't have the schedule per se last year to do it. This year they do. That's not an issue. They've got this top 10 matchup. They have to go to Iowa next week. That's not an easy place to play. You've got to go to Oregon right after that. You've got to go to Penn State later. So their schedule will not be an issue this year, but they also have the opportunity to make a dent in those games, because I think 10-2 should get them back to the CFP if those losses are respectable, and at Oregon and at Penn State. But you cannot lose to Illinois at home. I think that they really need to win this game to say Indiana is for real. And but the Illini kind of needed too, because their schedule is not quite as strong as Indiana's, and the opportunities to get those big wins aren't as frequent for the Illini in the back half.
I don't. Obviously, it's a huge game for Indiana. Obviously, this helps them out immensely if they can win the game. I shy away from the absolutes in September. There's just so many times those absolutes wind up melting away in October and
a lot of times
November.
It depends on what's on the jersey too.
You 100% dead on there. There's no doubt about that. This is a almost must win game for both in Indiana and Illinois. You bring up actually an excellent point. It's probably more of a must win game for Illinois because they don't have quite as many big boys on the schedule. But who knows? Maybe Penn State winds up spitting the bit and getting that win isn't quite as big as what we thought it would. Iowa's got a lot to figure out as well. So I mean, there's definitely opportunities on the board for Indiana. But can I just say this? I mean, Jim, I've been recording with you for quite a while. We are plausibly talking about the Hoosiers getting into the college football playoff. And I mean, it's just incredible where we're at with this. You know, I forget his name. I apologize, but there was a ex-Hoosier football player that I heard interviewed this week, and he was on the was not Mitchell. It was on Sirius XM, but it was a guy that he was on the field last year, and he goes, you know, the crowd was dialed in, everybody was going nuts. He's like, man, I wish it could have been like this when I was here. You know, like this was incredible, and like that's become the new norm for Indiana. I just, again, like the job that Siggy has done to make this, you know, where we're at now with Hoosier football. Enjoy it, Hoosier fans. You know, I hope it's something that you're not taking for granted. I don't think the score is going to be 70-3, like a lot of Hoosier fans are predicting on Friday night. But certainly Illinois football is in a fantastic place right now.
Absolutely. Todd knows about those crowds. Indiana football fans getting a little taste of being of basketball, of how that has been like for people to come into Simon Scott Assembly Hall for decades. Even when Indiana wasn't at its best, Simon Scott Assembly Hall was always a tough place to play, is a tough place to play. On the football side of things, that hasn't been the case. The football, they weren't groomed football fans yet. They just weren't. It wasn't a part of the norm. It wasn't an expectation. Where with basketball, it is an expectation. Game in, game out. Football's getting there, but this is all new, Todd, to the IU football fan.
It is, and you know, it's a situation where going to IU football games, even when I was back in school, it was an event. Like you went because it was an event. It was like going to a movie. It's like it was an event to go to. And it was fun, you know, a lot of people there and all that. And at halftime, you know, we probably headed out to a party or somewhere else and went to somebody's house or did whatever. But it's not an event anymore. Like it's a football game that we want to see good football. And that is a different mentality. And to think where we were 2 Septembers ago, and then when that season ended 2 Januaries ago, is amazing to be at this point. Like you couldn't, if you wrote this in the script, you'd be like, that's almost not believable. Correct. And so that's what's fun about it. And we're not just like, you know, I'm talking to Pat Graham last night on the phone about how excited we are to go to the football game on Saturday. That conversation's never happened before. I can promise you. So yeah, it's bringing on a whole new aspect of Indiana athletics, and I think you have to give Dolson and Signetti the credit for that, because they did something that no one that's not named Signetti didn't think this was going to happen more than a year ago.
No, and you're exactly right. At Iowa, on the other hand, the shoe was on the other foot. They were and are used to just a great football environment week in, week out. And it's the same, even when things aren't great. That football stadium is full, baby. It's Saturdays in Iowa City, rock. It's one of the best football environments I've been to. It's akin to Nebraska, Notre Dame. I don't care. You can put them on par with any of those, because they live for their football games, man. Yeah. But we'll see how that we'll get a chance to taste on that one in a few weeks. But yeah, and so it's the uber importance this weekend for both of these teams. Jeffrey, what do you see playing out?
So what's interesting enough about this, by the way, appreciate the kind words about Kinnick, but we recorded on Wednesday
in the game.
Thank you. We recorded on Wednesday evening, Wednesday afternoon, actually, the Eyes on Big podcast, and posted it that night. At the time, the line was 4.5. I checked it, before we started recording. Listen, I just think overall, many of the points we're hitting, it's an equal type of deal. But what I've seen out of Fernando Mendoza and along the lines on both sides, I am convinced there is a slight edge on the lines for Indiana. Mix in the home game. So I got Indiana 28, Illinois 23. Now that was a cover for Indiana on Wednesday afternoon. That is now a cover for Illinois as we record on Friday morning. So I guess as I have it put right now, I have Indiana winning the game, Illinois covering, which, by the way, would not surprise me with the line going all the way up to 6.5 in some points.
Well, nothing surprises me in sports anymore, because injuries, turnovers, so many things that are kind of games within the games always affect things, Todd. As you know, things can turn on a dime inside of a game. But I think Indiana, because of what I've seen, because of how much better they just seem to be playing, and the defenses, they're one of the 3 teams in the country that top scoring offenses and defenses. We're back to that already, where they weren't getting noticed for that this early last year. Well, now people are paying a little bit more attention to it, but I think that is real, because we're talking about a defense that is following up a season where they were one of the most dominant in the country. Now, yeah, they lost some key pieces on the line, but it looks like they're swinging back into place, Todd. And I think Indiana wins this game by, I'm going to say double digits, but that could be 10 points. I'm not saying, double touchdowns or anything like that. It could be, who knows? But I think that the second half in these games are going to be the tail of the tape. And both of these teams have played well in the second half in the last 2 weeks. So another tip for keeping these games close.
Yeah, and you look at it like the line scares me based on what Jeffrey said to start out with, and I think he's probably accurate with that. In that Illinois, I'll call it dink and dunk, but the extension of their running game, throwing shorter passes, that's kind of the old Peyton Manning, Tom Brady philosophy of everybody. All old school coaches, Dan Campbell's of the world, always say you got to control the line of scrimmage. That I still agree with, but you don't have to run the ball. And Tom Brady won Super Bowls without running the ball. And, Peyton Manning took the page out of Tom Brady's book, and they started throwing 5-yard passes instead of 25-yard passes. And Indiana early in the season, I'm not saying it won't happen, but it's much harder to complete 20-yard passes once you're playing against really good teams. You just don't have the time a lot to stand back there and throw it. So it scares me a little bit with what Jeffrey said about Illinois getting the ball out of his hands faster and, just controlling the tempo of the game and keeping first downs, grinding it out. That scares me a little bit for the line. I'll be happy with a 1-point win. I think 6.5 seems like a big number. I thought 4.5 seemed like a big number. I was more surprised it wasn't more like 2.5 or 3. So if in the NFL, everybody gets scared to death to throw out a big line, a big number, because the games just seem to end up being close at the end. I mean, Miami Buffalo last night was a pretty good example. You thought it was going to be a blowout, and for most of the game, it was really close. And in this one, my gut wants, or my heart wants, Indiana to get out fast and throw some bombs and score a bunch of touchdowns and talk about Omar Cooper having 4 touchdowns again. But I feel like it's going to be more of a grinded out game. And I think Indiana will win. I don't think they'll cover the 6.5.
There you go. Good thing. Hey, let's take a quick break before we come back and finish out the segment. Can't keep these gentlemen forever, but glad to have them for the moments that we have them. Jeffrey the Greek with us, Todd Leary on this Game 4 weekend. Friday, got it going. Back with more right after these messages.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, on this Friday game weekend of week 4 of the college football season. Jeffrey the Greek is with us after a long hiatus. We needed to get through the cupcake portion of the college football season. There was no sense in wasting his talents on such mundane games, baby. So, but we're bringing him in for the big boys as the Illini and the Hoosiers go at it this weekend in a top 10 matchup for the Hoosiers. A few other games on the docket. Maryland and Wisconsin, which I think is this is my upset special right here. Not upset per se, but I think I'm taking Maryland and the points in this game because Wisconsin, backup quarterback, hasn't been all that impressive. I've been impressed by what Maryland has done with losing their quarterback to Wisconsin.
You're right.
And they're all Big Ten running back. Roman Hemby is IU's workhorse now.
The issue is the quarterback that they lost to Wisconsin has hardly played. So it looks like Billy Edwards Jr. might be able to make an appearance in the game this weekend. I'll say this about the Maryland-Wisconsin game. I think all of us expected that game to open up something like a 5.5 to 6.5 point spread for in favor of Wisconsin. That thing opened up at 9.5 and has gone up to an even 10. Something stinks in Cheeseland. Okay, like Vegas is on to something here. Now, with what to try to build on and somewhat agree with what you're saying, I do see that I could see Maryland as a money line pick. Okay, like just do away with the points and just take it money line.
Smarter betting. That's
Yeah,
why I'm not
I
a
think
smart
so.
gambler.
Well, I don't know if I am either, but that's what this game smells like to me. Moneyline bet for Maryland, or just go ahead and lean into Vegas and take Wisconsin and the points. That's what I did. But I mean, not overly confident. I got Wisconsin 28, Maryland 17 as kind of a, wink, wink, nod, nod, that I'm not overly confident in this game. But man, if Vegas is giving you a blinking alarm on something like that, take it. And again, another part of the theme that we talked about for those that were with us in the earlier segment. What do we know about these teams? At least with, Minnesota and Nebraska and Iowa, they've at least played one team with a pulse. Maryland has not. Maryland has played 3 cupcakes. In fact, the second cupcake, they ate it, but it was kind of tough going down. This is really their first tough game that they have played on the road, a long ways away, with a freshman quarterback that is going to have a lot on his plate playing in Camp Randall. I know it's not going to be exactly rocking at 11 o'clock, but I think that's what you're seeing with this line.
And see, that's why a very, very astute analysis there with some added information that I seriously was not aware of. Oregon. I think Oregon is the best team in the Big Ten and possibly in the country. We'll see as these games go on. 34.5-point favorite over Oregon State. No sense in wasting time with that one. Possibly the closest game in the Big Ten this weekend, Michigan at Nebraska. That is a game that it's a 1.5-point spread there for Michigan. They're a 1.5-point favorite. A little surprising going into out there, but it's basically a coin toss when you get down to a 1.5 in these games.
Or so Vegas says. I'll tell you what, there are strong opinions on both sides. Now, I'm not just talking Michigan and Husker fans, just college football people alike. Some people are adamantly on Michigan. Some people are adamantly on the Huskers. It is going to be compelling television on Saturday afternoon. Stat that's going to get thrown out there, 9 years since Nebraska has gotten a win over a ranked team. 9 years since Nebraska has beat a ranked team. This is one of their best chances to get that. We got 2 quarterbacks that are former 5-star number 1 quarterbacks in their recruiting class, and Dylan Raiola and Bryce Underwood. I tell you what, Bryce Underwood last week, I know it was directional Michigan out of the MAC that they were playing. He looked incredible. Like, I was blown away at his talent that he displayed in that game. The coaches used him running the ball, throwing the ball down the field. How does that now translate going into a really tough environment in Lincoln to take that on as a freshman? Like, nothing has looked too big for Bryce Underwood, including that Oklahoma game. I know that, the outcome wasn't good for Michigan, but I never felt like Bryce Underwood was overwhelmed or anything like that. That was probably good experience. So I've got Nebraska win the game 24-20. So not only am I taking the points, I'm taking Nebraska to win outright. But my guess is we'll have a feel for how this game is going to look pretty quick, like how which team is looking better.
Yeah, and a little bit of pressure starting to mount on Matt Rule as well out there to get that done. The only other game worth probably talking about besides tonight's Rutgers-Iowa game we'll get to is Michigan State at USC. USC also, buddy, watch them by the end of the year. They just keep quietly moving up. What are your thoughts on the Trojans?
My thoughts are that Jaden Maeva and this USC rushing or a passing attack is just all over. I mean, they're just dominating people. There are teams in the Big Ten in the country that I think would be a really tough matchup for USC, namely teams that could kind of run the ball down their throat and play a little bit better defense. I just don't think Michigan State is that team. Their pass defense looked extremely leaky versus Boston College at home. Okay, so that's Boston College at home. This is now USC on the road. So I definitely think that Aiden Childs and this Michigan State offense has enough talent that they can get some points on the board. I'm still not completely sold on this USC defense. Their D-line can get pressure. Okay. Outside of that, I don't know if I'm in love with this USC defense. So I think Michigan State gets some points. I've got 44-24. So I like the over in this game. Love the over in this game. I like USC covering that point spread. Now I know, but I do want to ask you one question, not to dictate the format, but in Purdue Notre Dame. I mean, I know that's a big spread, people, but where do Indiana fans fall at? I mean, the two teams that you would fire into the sun the most, I think, would be Purdue and Notre Dame. So who you going with, Jim? Who you actually want to cheer for on Saturday?
Oh, I know. I won't care either way personally, but
Okay.
I think that we know how pissed off Notre Dame is. They're 0-2. They can't do anything to stub their toe the rest of the way. Even though it's Notre Dame, they don't have a lot of opportunities coming either. USC is one of those, but not a lot of chances to overcome these early season losses. But I think that's going to be an absolute beatdown. Well, I shouldn't say beatdown. I'm surprised at the job Barry Odom has done. He's done some good stuff here in West Lafayette.
I like Purdue in the points in that game. Nobody's really paying attention to Purdue. Obviously, the other two teams in the state are getting all the eyeballs, but Barry Odom, it reminds me of when Greg Schiano took over Rutgers from Chris Ash. The improvement is immediate and obvious to me. So do I think Purdue is going to win the game? No, but man, that's a lot of points in this game. I kind of like Purdue.
And the last game, your Iowa Hawkeyes get it started tonight, traveling to Piscataway to take on Rutgers. 2.5-point favorite in that game, the Hawkeyes are.
That line has not moved an inch all week long. Probably kind of gives you a little bit of idea. People are unsure about both these teams. So Rutgers, sort of the same scenario that we're talking about here. You know, they've basically played 2.5 cupcakes. I would give the Ohio Bobcats a level up from a cupcake perspective. So Ethan Caligmanis, second or third year in the offense with Kirk Shirauka, and he's looked good. He has looked very confident throwing the ball. In comes Iowa's defense, and in comes Iowa's rushing attack. So how will Ethan Caligmanis look? He's going to have some success tonight. They have got a really impressive, kind of out of nowhere wide receiver room that has looked really good. They're going to have success against these Iowa cornerbacks. How much success? How much success will Rutgers defense have stopping Iowa's rushing attack? I think this could be the third or if you did the top offensive linemen that Rutgers have faced up to this point in the season, Iowa might have 4 of the top 5 offensive linemen they faced up to this point. You see what I'm saying? Like, you know, they haven't faced an offensive line like this. So I've got Iowa 27, Rutgers 21. I'm not overly confident in this game. It's the team that makes big mistakes will definitely lose this game. If Iowa can be the team that makes about the same or a little bit less mistakes, I think they can get out of Piscataway tonight with the W.
I agree, brother. Jeffrey the Greek, good to see you again from Paved Drain. Give a shout out to Paved Drain real quick. We're not quite ready for Paved Drain, baby. It's going to be in the 80s, but it's there if you need it.
Get you thinking, you know, like we hope the warm weather lasts a little bit longer, but inevitably, you know, right around Halloween or a little bit after that, you know, the temperatures drop, the snow starts falling. So Paved Drain Heated, find us on the website. You'll find me on the website, Jeff Book, at Jeffrey the Greek on Twitter, but feel free to look me up. Get a hold of me to talk through the process free of charge.
It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Absolutely.
That should be the new slogan, baby.
Let's do it. We can roll with that.
Jeffrey the Greek, great to see you again, man. Look forward to it. It's always a blast.
Good to see you, Jim. Thanks for having me on. Everybody enjoy their awesome weekend.
And don't forget to follow Jeffrey and the crew at Eyes on Big Podcast as well. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Hey, we've got more coming up on Indiana Sports Beat Radio as we traverse forward. Zach Osterman up next from the Indy Star. Back with all that and more right after these.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday, heading into week 4 of the college football season, and the IU insider for the Indy Stars, Zach Osterman, joins us. Zach, how are you? How was your week?
It was good. How was yours?
Good, just fine, man. Just rolling along as we get deep into this college football season. Now just getting into the meat and potatoes as conference play getting going for most teams, including Indiana, as they kick it off with a very high-profile game as they welcome in number 9 Illinois in an opportunity to get a win like they haven't had in Memorial Stadium in quite some time, being a ranked team, not just an upset. But this is an opportunity for Indiana to kind of put away some of that chatter that they were dealing with from last year of scheduling and this, that, and the other thing. Illinois, a team that many people from the onset of the season saw it as a very potential CFP team, currently ranked number 9 for obvious reasons. So the opportunity to make a big statement on national TV under the lights lies right in front of the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game, from an Indiana perspective that I think we've been talking about through most of the offseason. I don't know that there was a game quite like that. It might have been the UCLA game because it was Indiana going to the Rose Bowl. But, it is I think it's the only ranked on ranked matchup of the weekend. Or maybe, Auburn, Oklahoma, I think is also technically ranked on ranked. It's Indiana's first ranked. It's Indiana's first top 20 home game. Both teams ranked in the top 20 since 1987. Listen, you're right to an extent. Like, there's going to be an extent to which Indiana is just going to have to deal with some of that criticism or that sort of nitpicking, because everybody deals with it at one level or another. That's kind of part of being on the main stage. But, certainly the chance to make an early statement in this season, and probably a necessary one when you consider that Indiana – the other 3 sort of clear-cut resume builder games, and others may get added, but the other 3 that we can kind of know today are all on the road: Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State. So, from Illinois' perspective, I think they can afford to lose this game and maybe still control their own sort of playoff destiny, so to speak. From Indiana's perspective, this is probably a little bit more of a must-win, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, first of all, what a treat for Indiana football fans, as the environment itself should set up to be just an electric one that is usually something you find at other places, but this is something that Indiana has added now, along with the success of the season last year, you start to get opportunities like this where a big part of the nation is watching you. And this is an opportunity that Indiana, I think, will take advantage of, but especially some injuries have come into key play with Illinois losing one of their starting star defensive backs.
Yeah, and I mean that's not going to help. Illinois gave up 350 something in pass yards at Duke, and I know they win that game comfortably in the end, but Duke kind of self-destructed in some key moments. I think they had 5 turnovers in that game, and so if a good secondary has to work in concert with a good pass rush. Indiana fans will know that well from some success that Indiana's had in the last few years, and that Illinois front is far and away the best Indiana's seen, as you would imagine. Genuine sack threat on the outside. A team that can control the game at the line of scrimmage if it wants to. But if you are down Xavier Scott, then suddenly your coverages change. Do you have a player that you think can cover one of Omar Cooper, DJ Will, or I'm completely losing the thread. EJ Williams or Elijah Surratt, or are you going to have to shift fully to zone? And if you do that, then suddenly maybe you can't put that extra hat in the box that you want because you've got to have, a good sound defensive shell. But now Indiana's running the ball against you a little better than you'd prefer. And now you're setting up a lot of, short down and distance situations and things like that. So, there was obviously some talk earlier in the week with Lee Beebe, and I in what we saw of him, you don't want to overreact to it. In what we saw of him, I think Indiana's going to miss him. But if Scott is out on Saturday for Illinois, I don't think Indiana's going to miss Beebe as much as Illinois is going to miss Scott.
Yeah, you hate to say that, but they do have the fortunality of having Kalon Black, and in addition to that, Roman Hemby has proven to be a great addition, and others are stepping up. So Kobe Martin stepping up. So they have looked good there. The offensive line, I've heard a lot about the Illini's offensive line, but Indiana has really. They've stood the test so far, even though the challenge is about to really get real, and we'll find out more about that. But they've done a good job keeping the quarterback clean so far and opening up some good running holes.
Yeah, I mean, no, if you're talking position-to-position advantages, I think Indiana's got the advantage of offensive lines here. And one thing that really, and I'm looking at the numbers while we're talking, one of the things that really jumped out, and I think I got this wrong on our podcast earlier this week, Illinois, I think I said they were 17th in tackles for loss allowed in the Big Ten so far this season. They're 16th. But they've still allowed 20. They have allowed the most sacks in the conference at 9. They are, as they were last season, struggling to kind of sustain a really effective run game. Like Indiana's run game has been, Indiana leads the Big Ten in rushing yards right now. But even if you think about last year, Indiana averages, 4.4 yards a carry, actually slightly less than Illinois. But the difference is that Indiana is just getting more quality, especially in the red zone, especially in short yardage situations. And Indiana's not that far ahead of Illinois last season in rushing yards per game, but it is a more steady rushing attack. And Illinois has struggled to kind of find that as consistently again this year. I think that is one of the reasons why they've had some of these slow starts in their games, their first 3 games. Illinois, if you look at them, it's kind of been, especially the Duke game and the Western Michigan game, it's kind of been start slow, keep things tight, keep the opponent under control on the scoreboard, and then halftime adjustments kind of change the direction of the game. But Indiana has not had those issues, and I understand Indiana hasn't played a Power 4 team. I'd also point out Duke was getting kind of roughed up by Tulane last weekend in week 3. I like Tulane. I think Tulane's a good team. But, let's also not overstate what Illinois has done yet this season. Based on what we have, I would take Indiana's offensive line, kind of as having an advantage over Illinois' offensive line matchup to matchup.
And that brings, well, we'll stick with the game for right now. What I saw in Fernando Mendoza last week was the continued progression. He obviously seemed to take a step forward in week 2, and then in week 3 he just looked even more polished. And I know they're playing Indiana State, but it was just how it looked, how it appeared, and just like they were getting more into sync together. And I think that's bad news for Indiana's opponents as they go further along for this. But I think that is going to be a big reason why I believe Indiana wins this game this week, in addition to having that solid running game that's put up over 300 yards in the first 3 games.
Yeah, I think if you're Indiana, you like that. I think anyway, that Mendoza's had a moment with each of his top 2 receivers. You know, that week 2, there's a strong connection to Elijah Surratt. He's targeting him a bunch. Surratt gets, I think, 9 catches on 13 targets. He gets the 3 touchdowns. And then in week 3, yes, Indiana State's completely overmatched, but it's Omar Cooper. And, you know, we talk a lot about Omar Cooper's run after the catch, and I think he deserves credit for, you know, he had 207 yards, and something like 135 of them were yak yards. But I would say if you go back and rewatch those touchdown passes, Cooper deserves a lot of credit for his acceleration, his speed, you know, his make you miss in the open field. There's also at least a couple of those throws that I think most quarterbacks wouldn't have tried. That I think in that Indiana State game in particular, and you know, this is all sort of like subjective and anecdotal, so I was qualified that way. But I felt like I saw Mendoza seeing windows more, getting through his progressions more efficiently, and seeing throws and making throws that a lot of quarterbacks wouldn't see, and that B, even some of the ones who see those windows wouldn't throw into them because they wouldn't trust their ability to make the throw. I thought Mendoza had some throws where, and you know, maybe against a better team, those are more dangerous. I don't know. But in that moment, I felt like I was watching Fernando Mendoza, you know, attempt some passes a lot of guys wouldn't maybe even see, and fitting the ball into some windows a lot of guys wouldn't even try. Now, you know, what that looks like against one of the better defenses Indiana's going to face, you know, this weekend against Illinois, I mean, we will find out. It is the age-old proverb of what's the old Zen master story? We'll see. But it does feel like you've seen, to your point, that progression in his comfort in his own role, his timing, his rhythm, his trust in his offensive line, and then also his comfort, that chemistry with your receivers that you can work on all offseason, but there is an extent to which that can only happen in live game situations.
Absolutely. Well, I know you don't give predictions and whatnot. What are your thoughts on the outcome of this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I predicted Indiana to win in the preseason. I think I said 31-20. I'm probably still about there. I mean, Indiana's interestingly, and you know, Vegas odds can move for a variety of reasons, and you never want to take them as gospel, but I do like watching the line and just kind of wondering like where Vegas falls on it. And it's pushed out from, I think it opened at like 3 or 3.5, and it's pushed out close to a touchdown. Now maybe that swings back around hard, right? Like maybe sometimes again, that stuff can almost be sort of setting up to go gobble up a bunch of, you know, Illinois and the points money late on. But I do just think that there's not a lot to separate these teams. If you actually look at Luke Altmaier's stats and Fernando Mendoza's stats, they're almost identical, like literally a yard or two, a completion or two off, but they are almost identical through 3 games. You got 2 defenses that have quite a bit of success getting penetration, getting in the backfield, getting after the quarterback. I could see it being a low-scoring game, at least for a little while, but especially if Illinois' offensive line is going to struggle because, you know, I don't care who your opponent played. If you watch your opponent put up 30 TFLs in 2 weeks and you are 16th in the Big Ten, having allowed 20 TFLs already this season, that's going to be an area of concern. Like, that's going to keep you up at night. And so I think On balance, I had Indiana by 11 in the preseason. Maybe I see it closer to a touchdown, but I think Indiana wins the game.
I'm with you there. Zach Osterman, the IU insider for the Indy Star. Glad to have you as always, my friend, and we shall see you at Memorial Stadium tomorrow evening.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim, as always.
Make sure you're following Zach, keeping up, and being a subscriber, keeping local papers alive. The great Bill Bender from the Sporting News joins us next. Looking very much forward to this. A colleague of our good friend Mike DeCourcy as well, as we roll on heading into week 4 of the college football season right after these messages.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC, local lives here.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Friday. Glad to have you, and even happier to have along Mr. Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Bill, thank you so much. First time we've had you on, but been following your content for quite some time and greatly enjoy it.
Thanks, Jim. Colleague of Mike DeCourcy. He's the best college basketball writer in the country, if you ask me. And, I was thrilled to come on here. And I know we're going to talk some Big Ten football. And, who knew the main event be Illinois, Indiana over Michigan, Nebraska? That's a great sign for those programs.
Absolutely. And I think it's great for college football because last year I thought was one of, if not the best season of college football, just because there are so many programs now that can challenge week in, week out. You don't know who's going to upset whom. Yeah, the big dogs are there and they're still there, but it's been a much more enjoyable experience on both sides, basketball as well. But football is it's like turning the Titanic. That's a slow turn for a ship there, but it has come and it has happened, and I think it's great for the game. I think it's great for college football and all the fans.
It allowed us to tell other stories last year. I've been doing it at Sporting News for 15 years or so, and I made the joke at one point. How many times can I write about Clemson and Alabama this year? When we were doing the 4-team era. I am more of a traditionalist. I did like the BCS era. I also grew up in Columbus, Ohio, so that ought to tell you. You know all about Ohio State and the powerhouses and the pressure of not losing a game. But to your point, you get to talk about Arizona State. You get to talk about SMU. You get to talk about Indiana and the season they had last year. And we're starting to see that now this year with schools like Tulane. And keep an eye on Vanderbilt. That they're kind of, everybody was looking for this year's Indiana. Well, Vanderbilt is kind of fitting that description with what they're doing with Diego Pavia early in the season.
Yeah, and that brings up to another point. we've seen so many quarterbacks emerge, and that's been part of the revolution here. But so many more guys that are achieving better things at quarterback. So many that move up from a lower level to play on the Division I big stages and succeeding. It's just been wild to watch this play out in real time.
Transfer roulette, that's what I call it. You know, you never know what you're going to land on. And Indiana obviously lands on Curtis Rourke last year. I'm an Ohio University grad, so that tore at me a little bit, but the Bobcats ended up winning the MAC, and Curtis went to the playoffs, so that worked out. And then this year you get Fernando Mendoza. I mean, the two quarterbacks in this Illinois-Indiana game, Luke Altmaier's an Ole Miss transfer, and those two guys have combined for 17 touchdowns and no interceptions this year. So in that respect, Illinois and Indiana have hit. Other schools, not so much. I don't know how much you want to talk about Nico Iamaleava and the disaster that UCLA has become in just 3 weeks, but that's the roulette wheel. It can hit, it can miss, and sometimes it can miss by a lot.
Yeah, and even with these two great passers in this game, not too many people are seeing this as a high-scoring game because of the defense, which is going to be interesting. So it's going to be who breaks first, I guess. But I think that Indiana may have a slight advantage now with Illinois losing one of their top players in the defensive backfield. That's probably going to impact what we're able to do. But the offensive lines, it all starts and ends with the lines. Who keeps their quarterback clean? Who opens up the running holes? Indiana has rushed for over 300 yards in each of its first 3 games. So even though they've lost Lee Beebe Jr. for the season now, but they are a much more balanced offense than they were a year ago.
I mean, that's what was the eye-popping stat as I was prepping to do this game this week. 307 yards on the ground and over 6 yards a carry. You're going to win most of the time, if not all of the time, if you're averaging that. And Zach on the last segment was talking about the TFLs. You know, that's another factor in this game. Who gets behind schedule? You hear coaches obsess about, you know, not being in 2nd and 14 and in the team that can do that. Illinois' got a really physical front. Gabe Jacques is one of the better players in the Big Ten. Indiana's got some dudes on defense as well, obviously. Fisher, Pons, they were on our preseason All-American team. So based on the history of this game, I think it's going to be like a 28-24 game. Full disclosure, I did pick the Illini. I like how they looked down at Duke a couple weeks ago in a game that was supposed to be close. They had the closer Gene late. And this game reminds me a little bit when they went to Nebraska last year. They've had that experience. So I do think it'll be a one-score game either way.
Well, it's going to be an electric environment, sold out Memorial Stadium. One of the rare times where Indiana hosts a game when both teams are ranked. Indiana still, everything they do is a first right now because they haven't done much in football in the past. But this should be a great weekend. One of the highlight games of the weekend, as a matter of fact, like you said earlier, who thought it? Who'd have thunk it? But NBC, primetime, under the lights, it's also good for the Big Ten. The Big Ten does not play enough marquee primetime games, I don't think.
Well, some of that's the big noon factor, and that's a constant topic of conversation here in Columbus.
The Ohio State fans really enjoy those noon games, I understand.
No, they do not. And I was at the Indiana game last year. Now, the Michigan one is separate. You know, we have that tradition of Ohio State, Michigan at noon. That's accepted. It's basically not indoctrinated. But when you're playing Texas at noon and Indiana at noon and Nebraska at noon, and I didn't think that Indiana game last year should be at noon. And when I was growing up watching college football, as a Big Ten fan, I enjoyed the 3:30 window. That was the one. Like, you know, when the big game was at 3:30. But now that like you said, now that we've moved to a full day calendar, yes, the Big Ten needs to put these marquee matchups at night. We've got one this week. We'll obviously have one next week with Penn State, Oregon, and I think it's the best way to do it.
As the Big Ten is I don't want to say challenges, but an SEC have this competitive rivalry going forward, I would think it would behoove the Big Ten to put more of their marquee matchups in prime time to be seen.
Yeah, and it elevates the other programs. So I don't know if you and I would agree on this. Right now, if you look at the state of the Big Ten this season, that there's three teams that kind of stick out. I think Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. I mean, they're all ranked in the top 5. And then this Indiana-Illinois game, the winner slides into number 4. I still think Michigan, they're going to lose a couple games this year, but with Bryce Underwood, they're going to continue to get better. And that's not just this year. That spills into next year and probably the year after that. And then it's just trying to find out, is USC for real? And the difference, I think you kind of hit on it. The SEC, the difference is last weekend they went 8-0 in non-conference games. Notre Dame really needed to win that game, by the way. And then their conference games were riveting. You know, like even Ole Miss, Arkansas was a great
I
week.
watched that game, man.
Right. And Tennessee, Georgia was awesome. LSU, Florida was a competitive. I don't know who the best team is in the SEC, but I know they've got, I'm trying to do it in my head, 9 or 10 playoff caliber teams. That's not, I'm being 100% serious.
Oh, no, I've said that. I've said a difference that I see of the SEC and the Big Ten this year is the SEC just has a little more depth at quality teams right now. But can Nebraska step up? Will USC step up? Will somebody else, Washington, possibly step up? But they don't have that cachet right now as deep as the SEC does. I agree with you 100%. I've talked about that. But seeing programs like Indiana, like Illinois, kind of rise up into that, that's great for the league. Great, and again, great for college football. But the Big Ten's going to have to match that. And speaking of which, the SEC finally relents and goes to a 9-conference game schedule. But not only that, they won up the Big Ten by keeping the requirement to play a P4 team. Just yesterday, ACC looking at a 10-2 model, which I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I also understand that the ACC is not as deep as either of these two conferences, so they may not have as many decent teams to play. You might want to go outside the conference to find an additional P4 matchup. But when does the Big Ten have to follow suit with the SEC and add that P4 requirement?
Well, either that or I'm a proponent of 10 conference games. I mean, that would be amazing if the Big Ten, as long as the College Football Playoff Committee is going to grant that latitude. So if I was building a Big Ten schedule, I would play 10 conference games. I would play 1 Power 4 school, and then I'd play a G5 school, 1. You know, if you want to do 2 at that point, that's fine. For the sake of this discussion, if we're going to stay at 9 conference games, 1 Power 4 school, 2 Group of 5 schools. Like I said, I'm a MAC graduate, so I enjoyed last weekend. I enjoyed watching Ohio play against Ohio State. I actually think the Bobcats acquitted themselves very well in that game. So, and it helps financially schools from the MAC. It's important for Ball State. It's important for Eastern Michigan to have that money. So, but I also want to see good games, right? And I want to see, and for the conference standpoint, if you went to 10 conference games, you get 5 at home and 5 on the road. I mean, that's the other part. There are those years where, you know, Indiana and Purdue have to play. Like, remember Purdue's schedule last year? Was it not the most absurd thing you've ever seen? And with 18 teams, maybe that curbs the schedule imbalance just a little bit.
They didn't, not much better this year. They opened up with a Big Ten game in week 3 against USC, which they did okay in.
Yeah.
But then now the reward is to take on a Notre Dame team, which is just going to be furious and steaming coming out because they have zero margin for error throughout the remainder of this season if they want to think about a college football return in that. Get back to the Big Ten. Indiana is a team that I have thought would make the CFP this year. I think that they probably end up going 10-2 personally. I think they win this game with Illinois. I think that the passing game, Fernando Mendoza, is just really coming into sync right now. And I think that is going to be a little bit better than what Illinois is able to put because Indiana's defense is a little bit better. This is not a huge difference here, but it is a spread that has started out as Indiana being a 4.5 point favorite at home, which was not a big deal, but now it's up to 6.5 points.
So a lot of people feel the same way you do. And here's the thing with Indiana. I think they've got a little more runway as well because of that schedule. And you said 10-2, and I'm thinking, yeah, if Indiana went 10-2, they'd probably be safe or right on that fringe where it depends on how many teams stack up with that kind of record. Obviously, next week, I believe they play Iowa. That won't be easy. Penn State, Oregon, it's a tougher schedule. So we're not going to spend November nitpicking that schedule and nitpicking Curt Cignetti, who, by the way, just continues to just win. I mean, a hyper-confident coach, perfect for the Big Ten. I don't do the Spurrier comparison, but I think he's coming to the league a lot like Joe Tiller did when Joe Tiller did at Purdue. I remember when they brought in, and there was this idea that they were going to bring in basketball on grass. And, like I said, living in Columbus, we were like, yeah, sure. Okay. And then some guy named Drew Brees came along and he did okay at Purdue. And then after that, so I just think Curt Cignetti continues to defy this narrative that I think some people are waiting for the bubble to burst, and it just hasn't done that yet. He's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, I think he is exactly what Indiana needed, that program needed, because you just don't turn that ship around. And he did it in a very bombastic way. But when, I forget who said it, if you can do it, it ain't bragging. And so he's continuing to get that done. And I wonder if that's just some of that is pressure he likes to put on himself to keep that drive. I don't know, but he's certainly a very entertaining to be around most of the time. I have found him to be a little more subdued this year in the pressers because I think he knows that, all right, there's some pressure on us to really do well again this year against better teams. So I think he's muting it just a little bit, and we'll see after if they get a big win against Illinois. We'll see how that comes out, but he's been muted a little bit.
Well, I go back to last year. I was at the Ohio State game, and I went to his press conference afterward, and we were all, you know how we behave. We're looking for that headline, that thing that people will click on. And as you listen to him, he basically went through so analytically without, if you really paid attention, he was telling you every reason why they lost without being bombastic, with being very clinical. You can tell he knew what went wrong. And in that Ohio State game, yeah, they were overmatched a little bit last year, but there's a lot of teams that go into Ohio Stadium at noon and are overmatched. And, just about everybody except Michigan at this point over the last 4 years. So, which they're going to look to change this year. But I think he really knows how to run this program. You have to say some of those things to get the attention. Like, game day was at Bloomington last year, and now you have the big noon kickoff game and these things that are really good for program exposure in an NIL era where this story can happen. And I think he's done, like I said, a fantastic job with the portal. And like he says, Google me, look at his winning percentage. It's absolutely incredible between Indiana and James Madison.
Absolutely. And James Madison continues to roll on in the college football world as well. So this weekend, what are the top games? What comes out? Let's say Indiana wins. What does that mean? Illinois wins. What does that mean?
Well, like I said, I think this is for that fourth slot, essentially. When you look at the Big Ten, I do think the Big Ten will get 4 playoff teams, especially if Notre Dame can't squeeze into one of those spots. So I think the winner here will inherit that 4th spot. Michigan, Nebraska will have some impact there because if Nebraska wins, they'll be ranked. If Michigan wins, the Bryce Underwood hype will continue. But I think Illinois, this is their moment in a lot of respects too. We built them up as a 10-win team. How many times over the summer, Jim, did you hear this year's Indiana with attached to Illinois? So maybe this year's Indiana is last year's Indiana if Indiana wins. And I'm just, maybe Curt Cignetti says that afterward or something. But I think this is for that 4th spot in the pecking order. And if Indiana wins, it will really validate what's gone on. And I don't worry about the non-conference schedule as much. Look at Penn State's non-conference schedule. It wasn't very good either.
I agree. It goes on. We'll and that just takes care of itself. Before I let you go, give me one good funny story about our good buddy Mike DeCourcy.
Well,
I try to make him laugh each Tuesday, and I think I do a good job of that just by sitting down here. But he is one of the kindest, sweetest, nicest, knowledgeable media members that I've ever been around.
I don't know so much funny as I can tell you a little bit of the dynamics with us. I had lunch with him a couple weeks ago. He's obviously a Pittsburgh guy, and I'm an Ohio guy. So there's a lot of back and forth about Pittsburgh and Ohio. And, he's a big Steelers guy. And I always tell him, one of these theories I read years ago is like, if the Ohio River touches your state, you're infected by it, right? You're not, just because you're in Pennsylvania, it's not Ohio, right? Like, don't act like you're not that. So we have a lot of fun, but I will tell you this, as somebody that's worked with him for 18 years, there's not a kinder guy. There's not a more knowledgeable basketball guy. And when you see him out at events, I saw him at Big Ten Media Day a couple years ago, just seeing how he'll take the time to talk to a young journalist and just be so nice and helping other people. That's what it's all about. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. That's why he's the best. And I'm a Packers fan, by the way. So in week 8,
I was going to ask that next question.
Yeah. So being a Packers guy and him being a Steelers guy, I'm sure week 8 is going to be very interesting for us when Green Bay goes and sees Aaron Rodgers.
Two of the most prolific franchises in all of professional sports. So some good ones there. Bill, I cannot thank you enough. I've told Mike forever, I said, I want to get Bill. I got to get Bill on. I want to get Bill on. And it has been just as much of a pleasure as I thought. Hopefully I can reach out as we get midway through the season and catch back up with all that you're doing at the Sporting News.
Hey, anytime. We'll do it again. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bill Bender from the Sporting News, our nation's oldest sports publication. And unlike Mike DeCourcy, I don't think Bill was there at the beginning. Just kidding. Hey, we're taking a break. Alec Lasley joins us next to cap it off on this Friday of week 4 of the college football season. Back with more right after these messages. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Friday week 4 of the college football season. Plenty of great games to take in for Hoosier fans, none bigger than the Illini coming to Bloomington, of course. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Jim. How are you doing?
I cannot complain. How has your week been?
Good. Busy as always, as I'm sure you are this time of year with getting into Big Ten play for football. Obviously takes a step up in just overall coverage and everything going on there, and then getting into a critical month and critical weekend of basketball visits. So it was a busy week, but always a fun week.
Yeah, Indiana coming off of a big visit with Anthony Thompson. Now Ethan Taylor coming in this weekend, the 7'1" center, and with the all the announcements that have come out about IU basketball, it's going to be a busy October for the Hoosiers under first year coach Darren DeVries.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's a critical next, kind of 30, 45 days. A lot of these targets that Indiana is pretty heavily involved with, even going out to Latrell Almond as well, are all expected to make October or at least early November decisions and sign in the early signing period, which is always the middle portion of November. So September has been a big month for Indiana just in general, but specifically for those kind of 3-4 players of Anthony Thompson, obviously Ethan Taylor coming to campus this weekend, and then Latrell Almond, who visited back in June. And then you add in Junior County to the mix as well from a 2026 perspective. And then this weekend also Chase Branham, 2027 four-star point guard, is going to be on campus as well for his official visit. And a guy who is expected to make probably an early decision for a 2027 player. So that's another one to kind of add on to the potential commitment timeline here for the next, couple of months for Indiana. And going back to Anthony Thompson, right? I mean, that's a recruitment that Indiana has been heavily involved in, even going back to Mike Woodson. It's one that Indiana is very, very confident in, I would say, at this moment. He has a visit to Texas, has a visit to Kentucky still upcoming. But the biggest news and kind of shakeup, I would say, in that recruitment over the last week and a half after his Indiana visit would be the commitment of Quinn Costello to Michigan. 6'10" forward, but a hybrid kind of player, versatile athlete as well. And that pretty much took Michigan out of the running for Anthony Thompson. Going into the visits, it seemed to be Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio State. And Ohio State was kind of that odd man out, and Michigan would either go with Costello or Thompson. Obviously, Costello wanted to commit first, and they weren't going to say no to that by any means. So they take him. Ohio State is an interesting, school in this. The hometown school in Ohio, and the question is going to be whether or not they can put together an NIL package that can match Indiana and be something that could potentially put them over the top. Now, Indiana has a very good NIL program, very good NIL fund set up for these types of situations. But you're talking with some people as it pertains to Anthony Thompson, they're not necessarily going to overpay. And with Ohio State, they theoretically could overpay because they need to land a guy like Anthony Thompson. With Indiana, they're so obviously heavily involved with so many other top 20, top 30 recruits that, yes, if they were to miss on Anthony Thompson, that would be that would definitely hurt. But I think that still puts you in prime position to land a guy like Latrell Almond, and then if you have that's going to be okay. But Indiana still feels confident with where they're at with Anthony Thompson, that I don't think NIL is going to be the main deciding factor. It definitely could sway things, but it's not going to be the main deciding factor for him. The biggest thing was perimeter-oriented players with his skill set. He wants the ball in his hands on the wing. He wants to be a true, 6'8", 6'9", small forward-esque player and not be kind of pushed into a hybrid four. And that's what Indiana showed him on the visit, and the development and the ability to play the three really stood out to him from that standpoint. So, by all accounts, right, the Indiana visit went as good as you could have had. And now it's just up to, what happens over these next couple of weeks. But it does not seem like Texas or Kentucky are, at this moment, realistic options for Anthony Thompson.
The IU basketball schedule came out yesterday, and in addition to that, lots of announcements have come along. It's going to be an extraordinarily busy October for Indiana men's basketball. They've got the live on Kirkwood, and that is now followed by an open scrimmage, which I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm going to guess that there was some backlash from canceling or taking of that Kirkwood is deal, taking the place of Hoosier hysteria, which was it was worthless to me. But they've added this live scrimmage in addition for people that don't want to go out and hang out on the street, I guess. But I think that was added late. But you've also got an exhibition with Baylor in there as well.
Yeah, and the exhibition with Marion, and they announced that they're bringing back just another fan event, right, with the Halloween hoops as well. So so many. I think you're talking with so many people around the program, and then even fans in general, right? The biggest point of emphasis that this staff wanted to make was making sure that there was no gap or no big separation between the program and the fan base. And that was obviously the big thing that eventually kind of took over the Indiana program at the end of Mike Woodson's tenure. So the biggest point for this staff was getting back into the community, making sure that everyone felt very connected, from head coach to assistant coach to students to local people that are just hanging around campus to even kids coming down to Bloomington on a weekend, right? So they've checked all those boxes. I think they've stirred up a lot of excitement, especially for people who weren't able to really follow anything from Puerto Rico. And so now you get into all these fan events, you get into obviously the couple exhibitions, the Baylor exhibition, and then before you know it, right, we're here and we're off to a tremendous start in the non-conference schedule, going to play at the United Center against Marquette, still have Louisville, Kentucky, right? So many big-time matchups. So the next month is going to be, I think, extremely exciting from an Indiana basketball perspective, just to kind of get things going in the preseason before we do hit the non-conference. And I think this is probably going to be, in my opinion, the first time, I guess I should say, depending on what happens the next 2 weeks for Indiana football, but the next probably month is probably going to be one of the most exciting times from a campus perspective, where you have equal excitement around football and basketball. And I don't think you can say that in quite some time. I think the excitement is really, really shifting to basketball as well. And it helps to have, obviously, a tremendous football program that is just continuously getting people, students, the Indiana fan base excited about Indiana athletics. So I think it's a great time, and no better time to gear up for basketball than more of these fan events that were taken away over the last 4 years.
No, and great timing as football season now moves into the Big Ten portion of play. Big game this weekend. Obviously, we've talked about it ad nauseum with the Illini, but there will be other big games following that. And so as that starts to weld together, then you're going to have just a whole lot of stuff going on, man, on this campus. Like that, it has not been that way maybe ever with both of them combined at this level.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a great thing about, having two new coaches, right? Obviously Kurt Cignetti in his second year, but still very new to, the Indiana program, and really reshaping what football means in Bloomington, and has obviously done a tremendous job in 1 year. I don't think outside of winning, the Big Ten title or a national championship, I don't think you could have done any better than what Kurt Cignetti did in year one. And, obviously we'll see what happens. The course of this season is going to be dictated over the next 3 games, and even more so specifically the next 2 weeks, right, with Illinois and Iowa. And if Indiana can go 2-0 in this stretch, I think that's going to be tremendous, not only for, again, this program, Kurt Cignetti, but I think specifically the ability to win a top 10 matchup, right, with, or I should say top 20 matchup, but a top 10 opponent in Illinois. And then if they're able to follow that up with winning on the road, which they weren't able to do against a competent program last year, and be able to win at Iowa, a place that Indiana has obviously struggled, and most teams struggle winning at, and go into that bye week before Oregon, there's going to be a lot of hype around this team. And it's going to be interesting to see what the national talking heads want to talk about now, because everything has been, well, Indiana hasn't won the big game, or Indiana hasn't won on the road, or Indiana hasn't beaten a ranked team, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see kind of the shift in mindset for just people in the national scene for Indiana if they do win these next 2 games, and how much excitement will come back to the program as well, even from a national point of view, which a lot of the conversation has been steered around Curt Cignetti and what he's had to say. I still don't think the conversation is around Indiana being a great program, which they are right now, right? What Curt Cignetti's been able to do over the last year and a half has changed that mindset, but I still think a lot of the national conversation is, okay, what did Curt Cignetti say this week? Or what is he going to say? Or Indiana needs to do this or that. And so the next 2 weeks, I think, are critical to shift that mindset from a national standpoint.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. Thank you, my friend.
I appreciate it, Jim. Have a good one.
You betcha. We'll see you this weekend. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks to each and every one of our guests. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you. Get ready for a gigantic sports weekend. We've got the post-game show after Indiana and Illinois. Call-in show, by the way. That number will be put out for you in advance. So jump on and get on the horn. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.